And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the Saturday, September 23rd edition of the CBC Evening News. And our top story. More security upgrades are in the works over at the Bridgetown port. Finance Minister Chris Sinclair has revealed that government has purchased 2 new large scanners for use at that facility. He says the devices, which should be in operation by January, have been bought with funds from the Latin American Development Bank.
So that all containers, all bags, everything that comes through the Barbados port is going to be scanned or will be scanned at high speeds, electronic, that you can move. So you don't have to. Certain things you don't have to worry about. It then is left for the officers who will do their triaging or whatever they do to determine whether we are going to go in this one or go in that one. But at least you know that certain things cannot be in those containers. So it speeds up the work that has to be done.
Minister Sinclair was speaking during the Custom Brokers Association's annual general meeting. He spoke again about the delay in the transition of the Customs Department into the Barbados Revenue Authority, something he says is costing the island money. He says the value of trade in relation to imports for Barbados is around $3 billion, and having an efficient system which includes customs is vital.
Under the transition, the BRA, with all of the other agencies, land tax, all the other legacy agencies, land tax, inland revenue, and so forth and so on, VAT, under the law that we passed in Parliament, assume those pieces of legislation under the BRA Act as part of their schedule. So all of the schedules, laws and rules and regulations pertaining to land tax are still there and can be operated on and acted upon by the BRA. Same thing for VAT, same thing for inland revenue. Because the customs has not fully transitioned into the BRA, you have that split system.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Maxine McLean, has asked the international community to commit to assisting with hurricane relief and rebuilding efforts in the Caribbean. Speaking during the United Nations General Assembly at UN headquarters, Senator McLean pledged Barbados' continued support to those affected by Hurricanes Irma and Maria. She says the damage caused by natural disasters can have a serious impact on sustainable development, and UN member states have a moral obligation to help.
For Barbados and other states, whether in the Caribbean, the Pacific, Asia, or Africa, climate change is a matter of life or death. It is not an issue for sterile debates and endless meetings. For our people, it is about the loss of life and livelihood. For our economies, heavily dependent on tourism, it is about a cycle of constant recovery and rebuilding, which is a serious impediment to sustainable development.
And Senator McLean has also reiterated concerns about the lack of funding opportunities available to Barbados due to it being deemed a middle-income country.
Categorization as a middle-income country with a resulting restriction in access to international development assistance and concessionary financing is unfair, and it does nothing to advance the cause of sustainable development. We reiterate our call on the international community to create an enabling global environment and partnership for development. Countries such as mine require assistance in building economic resilience, not from challenges such as de-risking, blacklisting, and indebtedness.
Also addressing the Assembly was Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. He wants immediate and adequate action to curtail the effects of climate change. He says that while Dominica and other small island nations are not major contributors to global warming, they usually bear the brunt of its consequences.
The time has come for the international community to make a stand and to decide whether it will be shoulder to shoulder with those suffering the ravages of climate change worldwide, whether we can mitigate the consequences of unprecedented increases in sea temperatures and levels, whether to help us rebuild sustainable livelihoods.
Now, following the passage of Tropical Storm Erica back in 2015, Dominica was set to implement a national vulnerability risk and resilience fund to help their recovery efforts. However, that fund has not yet been established.
That facility has not yet been capitalized. We intended to place funds from our own treasury on an annual basis, but our capacity to earn has now been significantly compromised, even before we have gotten it off the ground.
Meantime, we are hearing that members of the Barbados Coast Guard have helped scores of civilians return home safely from Dominica. We hear more about the assistance they're providing from our Kareem Smith in Roseau, Dominica.
Right here at the Woodbridge docks, the Barbados Coast Guard is preparing to take 50 people to safety. Among them, Barbadians, Vincentians, St. Lucians, and Americans, all with the hopes of making it home safely. Bruce Wayne, an elderly man from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, says near his home, many are still coming to grips with the damage caused by Hurricane Irma. However, just after Irma, he left Florida and arrived in Dominica with a large group of friends for their annual September scuba diving trip. Little did he know, he would be experiencing even more emotional trauma as a result of Hurricane Maria.
We had one person who broke his leg. He was trying to get to a safe spot, and the wind just picked him up and threw him down a stairwell and broke his leg. So, but you know, we all survived the night. It was hair-raising. I know a little teeny corner of the eye of the storm went through because there was like 1 or 2 minutes where it was just dead calm. I remember my wife said, well, I want to look out the door. And I said, no, we're not looking out the door.
After the storm, they, like many others, were stranded in Roseau, which was becoming more and more dangerous by the hour. But Mr. Wayne says a number of people assisted him tremendously. Because of that assistance, they, along with a number of others, were rescued by an outstanding crew on the Barbados Coast Guard's L.C. Banfield vessel on Friday morning. They made sure everyone on board had food and water, and that they were as comfortable as possible. But after 16 hours and a short stop in Castries, St. Lucia, everyone arrived safe and sound, some to family members and others to U.S. Embassy officials. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Coast Guard Anderson Goodrich says although his crew has been constantly working since the catastrophe in Dominica, they're well trained and are happy to be working on the front lines.
The crew morale is pretty high because indeed to help your fellow man or fellow nation in these times of crisis or relief, it brings a general feeling, you know, a good feeling to you.
The LC Banfield will hit the open sea on Saturday evening to rejoin other military personnel and Barbados Fire Service crews still working in the battered streets of Dominica. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Well, the youth of Barbados are responding to the needs of Caribbean islands affected by Hurricanes Irma and Maria. And there will be a national youth relief drive during National Youth Week, which starts tomorrow. That disclosure from Youth Minister Stephen Lashley.
This initiative is a division of Youth Affairs Partnership with school-based organizations, primarily the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors, the Girl Guides Association, the Boy Scouts Association of Barbados, the Duke of Edinburgh's International Awards Barbados, the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. And it is all intended to mobilize and to collect through their various units and groups non-perishable food supplies for the Caribbean youth relief effort. The units and groups will work with the respective schools and locations to collect at the various locations all contributions for the drive.
And do stay with us. We'll have more news after the break.